Hello and welcome to the UCI panel at the Florida Citrus Sports Collegiate Esports Symposium. I'm joined today by two incredible guests from University of California Irvine Esports, Mark Deppe and Kathy Chiang. I'm so excited to be speaking with them today about the success and development of their program since its inception in 2015. My name is Jess Reider. I'm a staff writer with Full Sail University, specializing in gaming and esports. But enough about me. Let's talk to our panelists. So first, I'm just going to have y'all introduce yourselves, tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what your role with UCI is, and you can expand on that a little. Mark, we'll start with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Deppe. I'm the director for the esports program at UCI. I've been on campus now for 11 years, and for the past 6, I've been working with Kathy and other great folks to build our esports initiative that broadly tackles esports across our 5 pillars, which we'll talk about a little bit more.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kathy. I am the assistant director at UCI Esports, which means I focus on a little bit of everything, but primarily on operations of some of our special events, including summer camps and the UCI Esports Conference, staff mentorship, and training.
Excellent. So for those of you in the audience who aren't familiar with UCI Esports, some notable accomplishments include a 2018 win in the College League of Legends Championships and an award for Most Outstanding Collegiate Esports Program at the 2018 Tempest Awards. Mark or Kathy, either of you, can you really walk me through what some of the early steps to build the program were, where you saw the opportunity, and how you implemented it on a university level?
Yeah, I'll start off. So I think broadly speaking, in 2015, we saw a lot of interesting data points that really provide a compelling case for us to build an esports program. We saw the world of esports growing. We saw our clubs that Kathy was leading at the time really very successful competitively. We had faculty teaching and researching video games and how people in games interact. We saw Robert Morris University in Chicago in 2014 start the first scholarship program. So we thought we were uniquely positioned to explore it, and essentially we whispered the idea around and started discussing it with students and staff and faculty to kind of understand, was there an appetite, was there a willingness, what were the barriers we needed to overcome, and obviously we were able to come back with really compelling evidence and the resources needed to build what we built.
Kathy, did you want to expand on that at all, or?
No, I think that covers pretty much the main part of it. Primarily, I was a student leader, as Mark mentioned, when this all started. So I was really able to take the perspective of a student organizer, kind of the pain points of that, and what really worked on our gaming community on campus to kind of bring that knowledge to Mark and the rest of the team. So that was really exciting. And I was thankful to have the opportunity to get onboarded as the arena coordinator when we first started. And I think for any school out there that's starting out, really the student perspective does change the way that you build that program at the beginning.
Excellent. And then I'm curious, because you mentioned some of those maybe barriers to entry, and I'd imagine in the last 6 years, those barriers to entry have probably evolved for a lot of esports programs. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit about what they were like for you and kind of what you're seeing the current challenges are for new upstarting esports programs.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that first. So we get a lot of calls from different schools, and the number one thing is that every school is super, super different. So we just make sure that everyone's aware that they are going to have to, curate what kind of programs they offer or what priorities they want to have in their esports program. So some of those barriers to entry might be even just figuring out where you're going to place your esports department in terms of, the family department it's going to live in, because that changes your access to resources as well as kind of the priorities of what your program should be focusing on. So we are housed under student affairs. That really made sense for us. We really specialize in student life and the experience of the student on our campus. Really wanted it to be a home for gamers at UCI. And other upfront kind of costs and barriers, I think, is finding a location on campus. It's very, very difficult. I think almost every school can attest to how difficult it is to find free space on campus that is also well suited and easily accessible by the students. And a lot of people want to start off with a facility and they want, offices and a place where they can talk with their students and interact with them and provide services. And oftentimes the first thing people jump to is creating like a LAN center or a place with like high tech, a lot of, PCs and consoles and things like that. And that's a whole nother beast with, talking to your IT team, figuring out where's that hardware software going to come from? Where's funding going to come from? And I think all of these questions are cater to each campus differently, but we do have some suggestions here and there.
Yeah, I'll just briefly expand. I mean, I think money and space are the two most scarce resources on campuses. So those are two things that everyone's always looking for, and that's us too. And we were very fortunate to be able to kind of figure those out early on. But a couple of things I would add is one, there's just a lot of hesitancy at major institutions to do something that is really innovative and challenges norms. And so creating a scholarship video game program might be, I'll say there's likely to be critics on your campus. And so understanding all the stakeholders, who's going to be interested, who's going to potentially be a force of opposition, and understanding their thoughts. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants your university to thrive and have a great reputation and be successful. And so that's something we've learned is there's just way more stakeholders than you think there might be. And it's really important to listen to all of them. And I would say the number one a lot of people should think about, and they may not be thinking about, is faculty and getting your faculty senate and some really great champions on the academic side to understand and guide your program.
Excellent. I love that. And just talking a little bit more about kind of those intro years of the program, was there a moment for either of you, whether it was seeing it in the students or seeing it in results, that you said, okay, we're doing the right thing, we're on the right page? Was there that moment for you, or does it happen a lot? How does that go?
Yeah, I could speak to maybe the student staff side as well as the community and the clubs that we work with the most, since that's pretty much what I handled the first couple of years. For me, it really was the success stories of when people were applying in hordes for our student staff job at the front desk of the arena when we first opened up. I think we started off with maybe about 100 to 150 our first year in terms of applications. And just a couple of years ago, of course, before we had to close for COVID, we were reaching about 200 applications every single year just for that front desk job of being in the space and kind of helping with customer service, IT, events, things like that. And you just knew that there was such a love for gaming on our campus. And then speaking to these students and seeing how they took that experience at the front desk, and it encouraged them to join clubs. It encouraged them to pursue esports as a potential career when they graduated. We now have so many years of graduated classes of people that worked with us at UCI Esports on the career side of things. And I think some people don't realize how many professional skills and administrative skills they learn while on the job. We have internships as well, where people are graduating after working with us on graphics, social media, journalism, shoutcasting, all these different cool roles. And for me, it's always catching up with these students and them telling me that this was their best work experience ever, or it was their first time working, and they really appreciated the skills that they were able to take to whatever they did after college. And that is how I judge success, is by the people that interacted with us being able to have these great stories and still have these experiences with us that they want to always be proud of who they are. UCI Esports is on their LinkedIn, it's on their Twitter bio. Like, they're really proud that they are a part of that community. And before we had an official esports department, that wasn't always possible to know where to go. And so we kind of are like the direction posts that are telling students, here are all these different opportunities for you. And not just students, but like young gamers around as well. With all the youth programs that we do, it's really, really cool seeing the positive impact that gaming can have, especially when used as like an education vehicle as well.
Yeah, just to add a few other things that I've noticed over the years. One, I think is just the overall campus kind of celebration of our program. Like I said, there was some questioning, some uncertainty, some critique of our program early on. And that's honestly continued on even to this day. There's still people like wondering whether this belongs, but overwhelmingly, the campus is very excited about what we do. And so when we have international visitors come to campus, or when we have VIPs, everybody always gets walked by the esports arena to see our program. We have athletic recruits being on their official campus tour. It has nothing to do with esports, but you'll have volleyball players coming by just to check out the innovative things we're doing. Our strategic communications department is always sending higher ed reporters to kind of cover what we're doing. So I have felt over the years, just a lot of people have a lot of pride in that UCI is really unique in this space, especially among our peer universities, high level, highly regarded research public universities. And so this makes us special. And I think a lot of people at UCI have really embraced that. And that's to me what feels really good on a day-to-day basis, just seeing someone else come out of the woodworks and be like, how can we learn about your program? How can we highlight it? How can we celebrate it? And we have homecoming coming up in a couple weeks, and we're doing a virtual campus tour of Minecraft with them. They're going to watch a League of Legends match. And so we are now part of the fabric of campus, and that feels really special.
That's incredible. I love that. I as a member of my, esports community on my campus, I think like community, that's what it's all about. The games are cool, the wins are cool, but getting to be around people who play together is the best. So I'd like to discuss the 5 pillars on which the program at UCI is built. I found that really interesting in my research of you guys. So can you talk about what the pillars are? And then I'll have a little follow-up question about that.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. Well, broadly speaking, I will say when you're building a program, you really have to identify what you're trying to accomplish. And it was really hard for us before the pillars idea was finalized to articulate what we were going to do. And so it was a really a good way for us to focus our efforts and to communicate with campus stakeholders about what we were trying to accomplish. So our 5 pillars are competition, academics and research, community, entertainment, and careers. So we compete. We put a lot of resource into coaching and scholarships and practicing and a facility, team psychologist, exercise physiologist, player support coordinator, academic support to really make our teams play well and thrive. On the academic and research side, we partner with faculty and graduate students to help them collect data and participate in research that's innovative and understands how people and technology and games interact. We also host, as Kathy mentioned, an annual esports research conference. On the community side, we're trying to make the world a better place through games with diversity and inclusion efforts, challenging online hostility, toxicity, harassment. We have community programs like camps and other stuff. We do a lot of stuff in high school esports as well. 4th pillar is around entertainment, so events and streaming and broadcast. And 5th and finally around careers and helping people, however you're affiliated with our program, articulate why esports and your experience with games is really valuable and how it adds to a rich experience that will make you good in whatever career field you want to go into after UCI. And so there's we've done career panels. We help people with resume building, strength finder workshops, and a lot of stuff to, again, set them up for success after college. So those are 5 things we do. And I'll just finish by saying there's a lot of other things we could spend our time doing that might sound all encompassing, but it's not. And there's other schools that are doing different things that where it's like, that is a lot of effort. We don't have time for that. So this really helps us figure out what we're doing and stay focused on it.
Yeah, I just want to add really quickly for the entertainment pillar as well. We did open the UCI Esports Arena during our grand opening to make sure there's a space everyone can gather on campus. And just for people that might not know too much about the facility, I believe it was one of the first of its kind because we didn't just want a practice room for our teams. We wanted a place where people can play Smash Bros in the corner and people can play PC games with their friends and kind of come to our space almost like they would like go to a bowling alley, but instead they're playing socially PC and console games in our arena. So we got 72 top of the line PCs in there. We got a shoutcasting desk. We have a space also separated from the rest of the computers where our competitive teams do practice. And the other point I want to make about careers is that we rely heavily on student work. They're doing amazing things with our program. We have usually around 10 interns that work in various roles I mentioned earlier, as well as about like 20 to 30 arena staff that help us with the events, et cetera, as well as the shoutcasting and streaming team that focuses on, digital content and creating videos and shoutcasting and all that good stuff. So that is really core to our careers pillar, is that people should be getting hands-on experience with our program as well.
Amazing. I love that. So in regard to these 5 pillars, what are maybe some things that you see in other established esports clubs on campuses that that in what ways can those pillars kind of enhance those programs, or things that where you see those opportunities? So whether it's like, do you see a lot of programs maybe not focusing so much on the career aspect, which can be really important for what your future success looks like after that kind of thing? Is there anything you see in other programs that you would give them advice based on your model?
Well, I will say, UCI is a highly regarded public institution, very high standards for both admissions and retention, graduation rate. I'll say one thing I would love to see more in college esports is just higher graduation rates. You see a lot of players hopping around, coaches, what have you. And we're really proud of our player and team GPAs. We're really proud that almost every single one of our players has graduated on time. And so that's one thing I would love to see, is more of a alignment with the kind of overall academic mission of the university. There's a lot of great programs out there. Some are competing at very high levels, but they often have rotating doors of semi-professional, professional players. They're not really there to graduate. So that's something I'm hopeful to see in the future of college esports, is that there's more focus on the college aspect of that and less on the esports aspect, and that everyone's actually trying to graduate and set themselves up for a thriving life and career after they're done with the program.
Yeah, and I think another pitfall I would just like to warn against is sometimes when a school is looking to create an official varsity program or an official department for esports, it's easy to try to take control over everything on the campus. Whereas there's so many schools out there that are thriving with student-led clubs or student-led teams, that completely shutting them out or making decisions for them or taking over is not always the best strategy. So I do want to just remind people that competition is the most visible aspect of every esports program, but not to put so much priority over that it trumps the student experience, it trumps the ability for us to give back to our community as well.
And I'm going to add one more piece on there. It's kind of like a meme in college esports, that you hire this director or coach who's going to have 50 different roles on their campus. One of the reasons our program is successful is that it's not just me. If it was just me, we would have crashed and burned a long time ago. We have Kathy, we have people doing the entertainment side, we have a player support coordinator, we have people running streams and exercise physiologists. We have people working in the high school space. So I would say a cautionary tale would be to hire a young recent grad who may understand esports, but if you're going to ask them to recruit and raise money and build a space and interact with faculty and academic side, it is so much work for one person to do many different things that honestly takes a lot of experience to be able to pull off. So that's another cautionary tale, is that it's really hard to build a successful program with just one person. I see that happen over and over and over.
Excellent. So kind of touching on talking about that student success rate, the good graduation rates, good GPAs you see from your players. I think that for parents, right, they're among that group of skeptics that are uncertain about esports on a collegiate level. So what are some of the things specifically that you all are doing to kind of reinforce that academics play a very important role and don't come, the competitive side doesn't come before that?
Well, I mentioned we have a player support coordinator who is really focused on the success of our students. And so we do Hillary Fan is our player support coordinator. She does weekly check-ins with every single player to understand, how are you doing as a human? And do you understand all the things you should be doing in class? Are you caught up with homework? We're checking grades every quarter. We have a minimum GPA of 2.0 in our program. The average GPA is way over 3.0. So our students are actually above average at UCI, and by the way, in really hard majors, we're talking computer science, computer engineering, so really technical majors with lower than average GPAs. So our students are thriving, but it's a lot of just hands-on engagement, making sure that we're dealing with all their life stresses, whether it's relationship stress or academic stress or financial stress. We have to work with all of those things. I have quarterly one-on-ones with every single player. And I mentioned our team psychologist, who sadly just left us, but we're working to come up with a new structured system. But we had bi-weekly meetings with the team psychologist just to check in with every player as a group, hear how we're doing, where's the conflict, how are we going to deal with that? And so it is so much effort to get a bunch of young people to work together and sit down and play video games at the same time and be successful. And largely, that's what we do, is we put a lot of time and energy and effort into them to set them up for success.
I do want to give a shout out to the coaches that we've hired, as well as kind of the positive culture where peer pressure is being used to make sure that people are going to class, they're doing well. It really is fostering this kind of sense of community within our teams that encourages people to also stay on top of their student work and everything else. And I think a big part of that is part of the recruitment and intake process that we have when we do tryouts, when we get potential people coming and talking about our program with us. We always make sure to emphasize academics, and we don't even give people tryouts or start to talk about the recruitment process until they are in the process of getting into UCI or already incoming students or existing students at UCI. So our top priority is like, you need to get in, you need to get admitted, you need to figure out what major you want, you need to set yourself up for success as a student. And then let's talk about all the gaming stuff and make sure that your priorities align. So there's a lot of interviews outside of just, running scrimmages and the typical tryout process, where we try to understand the mentality of these students and kind of what their motivations are for being here.
And to mention our coaches, it is part of our culture where if someone has an assignment or a midterm and they really want to focus on it, it is 100% acceptable for them to request some time off of practice or to scale things back. We have substitute players. Our Overwatch team, they were all just grinding through midterms the last few weeks. So they actually took like a week and a half or 2 week break from practicing just to make sure that was a priority. Because I'll tell you what, I've seen this. If you're worried about school, your practices are going to suck and your sleep's going to suffer and it's going to be meaningless anyways. And so it's really important for us to address the most important needs for our students right away. And oftentimes that's academics. And because of that culture, it's taken years to build, by the way. This is not something we had year one. Because of that, our students have been very successful the past few years.
Fantastic. So I had another question about financials, but I'm going to skip ahead to one that Kathy kind of just brought up. So while we're on that point, so I was going to ask about recruiting and player development. I think you've touched on that a lot in your last answer, but I'm curious, has the notoriety of the program over the last couple of years impacted what that model looks like for recruiting new players?
I will say we got a ton of publicity when we announced our program in 2016, and just an embarrassing amount of talent wanted to come to UCI. And I will say we have stayed kind of front of mind for a lot of superstar students who want to earn a scholarship and play esports on college campus. So yeah, I think it's been honestly pretty consistent that people are very aware of UCI. We now, I will say, have superstar players who are getting enrolled and admitted to UCI before they even let us know they exist. We have superstar, highly ranked players that don't need to be recruited that come to campus anyways. And certainly we do recruit some of them, but overall, I would say ever since we've announced our program, people are broadly aware of us. And because there's no real other elite California institution doing esports, we are front of mind for pretty much every California high school student that wants to go to college on an esports scholarship. So yeah, I don't know if it's increased over time. I think it's been very consistent, but it started off with a bang for sure.
That's wonderful. So yeah, about money, right? Obviously, you talked about this earlier when we first started speaking about, you need money to make it happen. That's always going to be a barrier to entry. And you guys are a cash neutral program. So for anyone who doesn't know, that means that you get no financial support from the university, at least when the program was first being implemented. I'm not sure about now. So if you could just kind of walk me through, how did you get there? How did you even realize that was like an avenue you could do? Where do you get your revenue from? That kind of stuff would be great to know.
Yeah, I'll take a first shot and Kathy can fill in some gaps where I missed. But I will say when we pitched this program, we knew we could not ask for $1 million. Like I have worked in higher ed. I'd worked in higher ed for 10 years before that. And I just knew like, yes, that's an easy way for them to say no. It's like, yes, great idea. No, we don't have $1 million for you. And so we built a business plan that we thought would be cost neutral. And it was for several years. And I'll talk about where we are now. But yeah, essentially we built this arena. We built a business model around people paying to use our PCs during casual use time. We weren't 100% sure it was going to succeed, but it's been very successful. And then we also found some very generous corporate sponsors like iBuyPower and Logitech and Pepsi and others who have contributed hardware and cash to build our program. And because we were one of the first in, that was available to us. That's not as widely available to many universities now because there's just so many trying to build it. So it was a combination of revenue we earned through our business operations, as well as corporate sponsors. And then after a year or two, we began attracting some major donors that started funding some of our high school initiatives. And so our three main funding sources were corporate sponsors, arena revenue, and philanthropy. Those have all shifted over the years. With COVID and the arena shutdown, we are certainly no longer cash neutral, and we're definitely trying to figure out what the future of our program looks like from a sustainability perspective. But yeah, campus has not typically funded us. They're not looking to fund us. They would like us to be neutral, to be an auxiliary unit. And right now, like I said, we're exploring options to, I guess, tighten our belts a little bit, but also find some other much more permanent funding streams.
Yeah, I don't think there are many gaps that I need to fill in there. I think it's just we're always thinking about how do we get those small, random revenue streams that we can do, whether it's event-based or something else. We really try to make sure that we cover our costs and everything that we do, from the camps to the conference to running the arena, like covering the staff costs and things like that. But definitely because of all the scholarships that we're offering and, staff wages and things like that, I know some of the ways that we've been creative in getting some more revenue from the arena is you can't just expect people to show up and, pay for the time and just discover you on their own. And that is that consistent. Like, as Mark said, we had a bunch of attention around the grand opening. And that was when people were really crowding into the arena constantly during tours or just on their free time to check it out. But, just kind of like a suggestion, I guess, for people that are managing facilities is we had to think way more proactively about how we were marketing the service that we were offering, as well as what cool things could we offer that people can't just have at home. Because realistically, almost every college-aged gamer probably has their own setup at home, probably has their preferred, peripherals and things like that. So we really tried to create a premium experience with the hardware and software that was donated to us, in addition to making sure that we ran, tournaments every once in a while, and we would do play tests in there and work with corporate partners to do kind of like launches or like special events. And I think that really, really helped in the first couple of years to drive more eyes and, foot traffic to the space that isn't just passively waiting for people to come in, because realistically, the word esports does seem a little off-putting to some people versus like gaming and esports is kind of like a debate. It's like the competitive nature of gaming is what people understand esports to be. So oftentimes you have to kind of clarify, oh, this space is open for all gamers. This is supposed to be welcoming. It's a friendly space, versus you have to be like a top ranked player just to enjoy all the services that we offer. So that was another big intentional kind of piece that we had to focus on, is making sure that people understood what our priorities were for the program to get more attention, to get more foot traffic, to get students involved in all the programs we were offering.
Great. So in regard to that, for other universities or other esports programs that are building, what's maybe some, I know you gave a little advice now, but what's some good advice on keeping a steady balance on their budget, or where are places that you see them maybe spending money that maybe doesn't need to be spent? Do you see that at all anywhere?
I would encourage universities to look at esports like as a cost center. I don't think you can look at it as a revenue generator or even a cost neutral program. It's a service to students. It's going to do a lot of the things at your university that a great public facing program, whether it's arts or athletics, would add. It's going to make your students excited to be there. It's going to engage with the community. It's going to put your brand out there for potential students to look at. And so that's what I think is like, when you think about where your resources are going for those different, aspects of your campus, I think esports can be part of that strategy. And so, yeah, I think it's a mistake to expect a program to look like ours, where you're going to have a business that's going to cover everything and it's just going to be all great, or you're going to get humongous corporate sponsors like UCI did. A lot of people are like, well, UCI got all this money, therefore we can go get all this money. And we haven't seen anybody else be that successful. So that's my recommendation. And I would say start small with maybe a part-time staff, maybe some small scholarships, maybe a small coach, and then see how it works. And hopefully there's value there, and you're excited to invest more over time.
Awesome. So, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway for the sake of framing the question, right? But COVID-19 has greatly impacted how we connect with one another, how our lives work on a day-to-day basis, and how we game with one another, right? What used to be like LAN parties or online community gatherings and that kind of stuff. So what has UCI Esports had to do to kind of overcome some of these hurdles? And how is that going to influence how the program operates through 2021 and beyond?
I think one of the big challenges for us is obviously we had to close down the space. So we had the arena, which is supposed to be the heart of our program, that suddenly we no longer get to see each other every day. We don't get to see our students. So there definitely has been a drop in kind of engagement and motivation among like the whole community, including our scholarship players, including our staff, et cetera. And I think for us, transitioning into this work at home experience and doing everything online, thankfully, because esports is so online in the first place, we were able to pivot pretty fluidly, I guess. Like it wasn't too difficult, but I do think that there is that lack of social interaction and all of that. So for us, even before we knew that we would be working from home and that this would be a very long extended period of trying to figure out how to operate, we were already coming up with plans of how could we create a safe work environment, as well as open up the arena again, if it were safe, in terms of like, spacing out the PCs, removing some clutter, making sure we had protocols for clean peripherals and, all these different disinfecting protocols. We wrote, I don't know how long the handbook is, Mark. I think like a 10-page document or something detailing all these new policies. And then we find out we actually can't go back on campus when we expected to. So it was like a week by week, month by month kind of situation where we were constantly waiting for updates from government, from UCI leadership. And for us, our top priority is always figuring out like, how can we adapt to our current situation? How can we use tools like Discord or our stream on Twitch to actually continue to stay in communication with people and, boost morale and boost engagement with our program? We had a couple tests where we wanted to create like a membership program, for example, where we have a way to continue to stay in contact with people that would normally come into the arena. And we also thought of other ideas of doing, just virtual experiences of what we've already done. And I think that the most successful pivot for us was around the UCI Esports conference, in which we turned an entirely in-person 2-day event into a completely virtual Discord, Zoom run event, in which we were able to get record-setting attendee numbers as well, now that people don't have to worry about travel. And it was amazing getting so many great speakers and attendees to show up for this virtual event, many of them learning Discord for the first time, as these are, educators and people from all sorts of industries, not just esports. And it was very inspiring to know that we could take the tools that we were familiar with and adapt events that were completely different from what we envisioned initially, and make something very successful out of it. So we're really proud of what we've been able to do, but we're still, in the muck of it, trying to figure out how we can continue to do things at the same level that we usually expect when we're able to see people face to face.
Great. Did you want to add on to that at all, Mark, or Kathy nailed it?
No, Kathy's answers usually just stand on their own, but I'll throw a couple extra things out there. One is because of our, I guess I'll start over. We've for the past several years had remote coaching. We found out that the best coaches we could find and afford are not all in Orange County, and so we have been practicing, competing, communicating online for several years. And so moving the scholarship competitive stuff online was very easy. We were already there. One interesting thing is, while some of us live in Southern California, not all of our players do. And so some of them are not even moving back to California this year, but they are still attending school remotely and playing for our teams in Illinois. We have one in Connecticut. And so that's interesting, very different than the athletic world where you obviously have to be in person. And yeah, just to echo what Kathy said about the conference, it was really a phenomenal experience, a very positive, engaging thing. So we had our keynotes on Twitch for everyone to see. We had all our breakout rooms on Zoom. And then in between everything, people were hanging out in Discord and playing games and engaging with each other and meeting new people. So that was a really phenomenal innovation that Kathy totally spearheaded.
Amazing. And then kind of continuing on that, how 2020 has changed a lot of conversations in gaming. I think that equity in gaming, creating more equitable space for all gamers, whether it's women, POC, anybody who kind of feels like disenfranchised a little in gaming. What are some things that you guys are doing to create a more equitable space?
Yeah, I can kick that off. So we were thinking about this from the very beginning when we were starting our program. And the first steps that we knew we had to take was to make sure that our code of conduct was up to par and that we got eyes on it from people in the industry that kind of understood what the challenges were and the things that we needed to work on. So we worked with a great partner, nekey.org. They focus a lot on inclusion, equity, and diversity within the esports space. And so we still have a great relationship with them. We've worked on training materials with them. All of our staff, players, and affiliates have to go through like bystander training and inclusion 101 courses, just to make sure that they understand like what are the issues that you're going to face and what are ways that we can actually shift the culture just at UCI Esports, but also in our own personal gaming spaces, like in the lobbies before games, in matches, all those things, just encouraging people to speak up, encouraging people to make a difference within their own circles and just seeing that, that snowball effect, like move outwards and kind of create a better space for everyone. And I think in terms of underrepresented folks in esports, we really try to build pipelines for that. We think that it's something that's going to take years to change the culture, but also change kind of the access that people have to games. So we had two different types of camps that really focused on this. We started the Girls in Gaming Camp series in 2017, our very, very first one that is primarily speaker-based, where we invited a bunch of subject matter experts to come and share their knowledge with young women in the space. We're looking at middle school to kind of late high school age to make sure that they know they have role models. They know that there are success stories out there and that women aren't needed to be in like certain boxes to exist in esports. And you don't have to be the people in front of the camera or the people on stage to be validated and to have a career in esports. So that was very successful. And we try to do as many of those kinds of camps as possible, including like free workshops and little kind of speaker opportunities for that. And then we also piloted a different camp idea called Esports Access, in which we partnered with some great people on campus that were already working with low-income families and schools that are able to bring in a different audience to esports, who usually, maybe if they can't afford a computer at home, we hosted it in our arena where they had access to all the best stuff. And we're able to learn from different people about what are these pathways that typically they thought were out of reach, and how can we make it more equitable for them to be able to access the things that they need. So those are, I think, the two major things that I definitely need to shout out. But one last one I want to mention is also the intramurals that we've been running with Campus Recreation. This year, we actually handed it entirely over to Campus Recreation. But for the past 1 or 2 years, we've been running quarterly intramural games in which esports is built into the intramural system of club sports and making sure that it's accessible to everyone. We started off with no entry fees at all. And this brought in a whole new audience of gamers than what you would expect for the people naturally coming into the space, who maybe didn't even know there was an esports program on campus, or maybe it was a little intimidating to get involved. And now they were looping in friends. We had co-ed requirements. We had all these different people that were participating in our tournaments and our intramurals. And it was really uplifting for me that we were able to bring out this love of gaming across a bunch of different titles that maybe we don't have time to support because we only have so many, scholarship teams, so many scholarships we can hand out. But now we're supporting like 9+ tournaments at once in a variety of consoles, console, PC, different platforms. And that was another way for us to create a more equitable experience and bring more people into the fold.
And I'll add in, I first of all want to say, like, this is, I think, the most urgent need in college esports. And when we started our program early on, campus leaders who focus on diversity, equity, inclusion brought us into a room and were like, look, this is unacceptable, what we're seeing on your teams, the people getting scholarships, it's not representative. And so they put together a task force on campus, and that task force of faculty and community leaders and student gamers, Kathy and I and several other people, and diversity experts, talked about, one, what was our role, what were the opportunities, what should we be working on. We published a 15-page diversity and inclusion plan on our website, and we've done almost everything in there. And then just recently, we met with our new vice chancellor of diversity, equity, inclusion to kind of say, like, look, 2020 has been nuts. Not only is there COVID, but there's all this like social justice unrest in the world, and how can we be a part of that? And so we were wondering, do we need to start another task force, what have you? So I'll just say right now we're talking with all the different campus centers, whether that be the Women's Hub or the LGBT Resource Center, or different community-based kind of centers on campus to, one, understand what they're doing and how we can interact with them. So I think our next iteration of diversity efforts is going to be more around partnerships and doing, like, elevating the work other people are already doing, building on their expertise. But like I said, this is an urgent need. It is something our staff, every single one of us, is very passionate about, and thankful that we have so many talented campus leaders and people around us that are willing to help us and build and grow with us.
Fantastic. And then my last question, and you can both take an opportunity to answer this. As you've got the first 5 years in the books, right? As the program continues to develop, what do you guys intend to do? Do you have big intentions for the next 5 years? How are you going to kind of enrich the greater collegiate esports community? What's your plan?
Well, I'll first just by saying I think permanency is something I haven't felt with our program ever. We always kind of operate year to year, like, how are we doing financially? What do campus leaders feeling and thinking? So really establishing permanent kind of structure and funding. And we're working on that and stuff that I won't share here, but if that comes together, I think that's really the legacy of the first 5 years. Is this has been a pilot. I think we've passed the initial test, and now it's how do we set this up so that it's going to keep momentum in the next 5 years. But really proud of what we've built. I don't think we need to change much. It's really just giving everyone some assurance that it's going to be around, and that we have a plan and a vision moving forward.
Yeah, I just want to echo the stability and the sustainability of our program is always front of mind. And without that, everything else kind of falls apart. So I do agree that's kind of the number one thing we're focused on right now. But in terms of what I really look forward to in the next, say, 5 or so years, is we have seen this kind of breaking down of community during COVID because, everyone's separated. We're still trying to figure out how to reach our students all the time, especially since they're just dealing with so many issues at home or, with, all the social issues that are going on. And I think that for us, we really strive to try to bring the community back together and see what resources we can offer, especially in all the stuff that we just mentioned. But for me, I'm really hoping that we place a higher weight on the student clubs, the student leaders, the student workers, pretty much everything student related. That's what I'm passionate about because that's my background. But I want to make sure that we don't lose those communication channels, that we're no longer in touch with, the community organizations and the student orgs that are doing gaming already. Because it's easy to kind of see ourselves as a standalone department. What are we doing? What do we need to do to survive? How do we strive and succeed? That sometimes it's hard to realize that, students are also struggling. And due to COVID, we've actually noticed a lot of campus organizations disappear entirely or just kind of lose momentum. So I'm hoping that with a return to campus eventually, or as we get better at adapting to virtual tools, we can use the resources at our dispense to dispense more resources to our students so that they can also succeed.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much for your thoughtful responses today and taking the time to talk to us. Again, this was Mark and Kathy from University of California Irvine Esports. Thanks a bunch. You guys have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.